I'm here with Dr. Elena Villanueva, and we are here in some patient records, and we're discovering what it's all about. What is it that people are deficient in that makes them unhappy? What is it that people need in order to send off those happy signals, to create a great mood, and to have someone to be able to experience the dynamics of life as well? We're not trying to make people perpetually happy. We're trying to make things operate normally so they're happy when they ought to be happy, and rather than, if some of these levels are off, they could win the lottery or have the most beautiful day with their family and feel like empty, right? And that's what's the problem with these numbers being off. And so here's the pursuit. We're looking to have you experience all of life, what it has to offer, the good and the bad, but to be able to do it with a mind that is fully responding to the stimulus that's around it, that's able to experience happiness, that's able to experience resilience, so you can overcome challenges and grieve and all these things. We're not trying to medicate an issue. What we're trying to do is find the root causes and find out what it is that's not firing, what should be firing, what's too high, what's too low. And Dr. Elena is going to help me work out what all this is. All right, so let's do this thing.
Awesome.
Yeah, all right. And did I say that correctly? Do you feel like you're on the same page as me when it comes to what the intention here is in normalizing these numbers?
Absolutely. We're not trying to force a change. We are working on optimizing the body's systemic engines so that the body can function normally. If the body's engines are functioning optimally, then your brain chemistry is going to function optimally, and then you can experience everything that life has to offer. You're right. I mean, we all have good days, we all have bad days, but we need to be able to process things in a normal, healthy way.
Absolutely. I love that. Our brains are designed, and our bodies, and we're designed to be resilient. So like, we can get hit off our horse with some really bad news, but that's also not designed to like lead us to want to jump off a building. It's all about being able to respond to that challenge of life in a way that is constructive and moving in the right direction. And a lot of people are just are shooting at life. I mean, like this guy or gal, that their levels are just too low. So you give somebody like that a challenge, a really big life challenge, they really don't have the tools. It's like going into an army with a war with a slingshot, right? It's just like, you're not going to win.
It's so true. What happens is that when the brain chemistry is off, because of whatever the underlying cause is, when the brain chemistry is off, the perception of the world around them is skewed to the point where when they have something bad that happens, it completely derails them. Or maybe something that wouldn't be bad or derail anybody else suddenly derails the person, and it's because the brain chemistry is off, because the person has systemic engines that are not working properly.
Beautiful. And that's a really, really empathetic piece for those of you that are strong people, quote unquote, people that are always on top of things, and maybe you have been for a lot of your life, and now you can't work out why things are just falling apart, and why things that you normally used to be able to deal with, you're just not coping with them right now. And don't beat yourself up. Don't feel like you just need to muscle it up. Ask for help, get help, find the answers. Let's get some answers here today.
Yeah, let's take a look at this.
So I'm looking here at these, let's give this guy a name, because we're being thoughtful to this person.
Let's call him Jeff.
Jeff. Okay, so Jeff here is, but this is a real person that has been to Dr. Villanueva, and he has come in, and this is his first test. Is that right?
Yes, this is his first test. So this is, we're calling him Jeff, and he's 46 years old. And he came in, let's take a look at this. He came in October of last year.
Yeah.
And he was really, really struggling with a lot of anxiety. He was having sleep issues. He was having gut issues. And he was definitely having some depression. He had developed also some increased food sensitivities and such. And very, very well educated,
yeah.
Works in the corporate world.
Right.
The guy's got it together,
yeah.
Or at least everyone thinks he's got it together.
You know what that's like?
But we totally know what that's like. But on the inside, the guy is feeling horrible. So he comes to us, and and we ordered labs on him so that we could start looking for what's out of balance and what's not working. And the test that I wanted to share with you today, I didn't bring every lab that we did on him, but I brought the brain chemistry one because so many people don't know that there is even such a thing as brain chemistry testing. So I think this is really valuable for people to get to see this.
I love that. Thank you. So let's go through each one of these. So serotonin is in the low here. And
by the way, he had been on SSRIs. So he had been on prescription medication to help increase his serotonin levels. But as we could see here, his serotonin levels were still very low.
So that attempt to artificially prop up serotonin for him didn't work, and it may have for a time. Like, it's possible.
It's very possible
that this could have been in the normal range for the first 6 months, a year, 2 years. But how long had he been on that medication? Any remembrance?
He had been on and off medications, I think, for about 15 years.
Yeah.
But
it makes sense that over time that things start like not working anymore. But
true.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just guessing.
But this is what he told me. Even with the medications, he never really got relief. And we can look here at the test and we can see why. Even if the medication had brought up his serotonin levels, almost all of his other neurotransmitters, with the exception of this one and this one, they were all way too low. He didn't have enough of his other neurotransmitters that also help him to not feel anxious and depressed and tired. So, as you can see here, he had, for example, he had low dopamine. We can see that all of these are low, but we'll just touch on the low dopamine here. With low dopamine, he's also going to have anxiety, and he's going to have depression, and he's going to have anxiety to the point of having impulsivity even.
Which is
like he may feel so anxious sometimes that he just wants to put a backpack on and run.
Yeah.
Because he's not feeling well. Everyone will exhibit impulsivity differently.
Yeah.
So, there are some patients who get angry. Like I had a teenage boy whose neurotransmitters were off, and he was having this excessive hold on.
Yeah, you're right.
He was having this excessive impulsivity that was combined with a fight or flight response because of the combination of his neurotransmitters. So he was in fight or flight all the time, and when he was on the football team and the kids would tackle him during practice, he would have a very impulsive fight or flight response, and he would go off on these other kids and just start tackling the hell out of them. He was hurting the other kids, and then he would feel so bad about his response that he would run off to the sidelines and he would start vomiting. Because he was just feeling horrible, but he couldn't help himself. So he was beating up on these other kids when he would get tackled because it was an impulsive response, because the brain chemistry was off.
Wow.
And this is a really good kid. Like, we've worked with him. So this particular kid that I'm talking about, he no longer has this issue. He's back on the football team.
Wow.
He's not hurting the other kids, and he's not vomiting out on the sidelines anymore. But this is an
really
example.
Embarrassing for him, the whole experience.
The whole experience was, but this guy, he's 46, so he's able to control his impulsive.
Got it.
The impulsivity that he has, he's able to control that better.
Got it. And but this other kid, so we can finish the story on the kid, because I'm really interested. Did you say all these levels are off the dopamine? What was it? And then he resolved it through some of the things we're about to share. Is that
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely the same processes? It's the same process. No matter what's going on, we're looking for the root causes. So with this 46-year-old that we're calling Jeff, he was feeling a lot of anxiety. He was feeling depressed. He was having issues sleeping. He was having increased food sensitivities, and this is what we saw. We went forth and we addressed all of the imbalances that we found in his body. We worked on anti-parasitic protocols. We worked on putting him on an anti-inflammatory, vegan-based diet, and we did gut repair with him. So we addressed it all from a very foundational nutritional level to remove the interferences that were not allowing his own body to make his own brain chemistry. And this is a process that this particular patient, this particular client, has been with me for many, many months. And he was one who actually took it. It was a little slower process with him because he had developed so many food and chemical sensitivities that when we went to put him on a protocol to add supplements, we could only add one at a time, 1 month at a time.
Yeah.
So it took him a much longer time to see the results. But
why did it take so long to put the supplements in? Why one at a time?
He had developed so much chemical sensitivity and had so many toxins in his body that anytime that we would put any kind of nutrition in his body, he would have a response to that.
They were natural supplements, right?
Natural
No
supplements
drugs.
like vitamin B12, folate, vitamin D.
Great.
Just natural things that are going to allow his body to heal. But he was a case that it took longer than average, but look at his results now. And he's feeling amazing, and he's able to do a full protocol. He has been able to reintroduce foods back into his diet now that we have done his gut repair. You know, foods that he previously couldn't eat, now he can eat them and he doesn't have a problem anymore.
That is so awesome.
So it's really, really amazing. And if we look here,
great. So let's have a look at that. So here I see a big difference, and so here's my layman's look at this. So clearly they've got the red is when it's either too low or too high. So just remember, when you're looking at something here, you're not looking for everything to be out. It's not like you're looking at a scorecard when you're in grade school and you're looking for everything to be up in the high range. You don't actually want that. What you want to do is you want to have everything in the normal range. And if it goes in the normal range in this particular graph, they've just illustrated that by this blue outlining and the gray. That's what illustrates something being normal. So his GABA was actually right. It was on the lower end of normal.
it was on the low end of normal.
Yeah, but it was within a range that wouldn't necessarily, in my layman's perspective, be the most symptomatic thing. These are where he's going to be feeling symptoms, and even in these high ones, because as you described to me, Dr. Elena, that these two that are high, he's still going to be feeling the effects of these because they're in excess. And they need to be regulated.
Oh, absolutely. Like this just makes it really easy for you here.
Yeah.
If this brain chemical is too high or too low, it also contributes to anxiousness. It's not always just a serotonin issue.
Yeah.
If your epinephrine levels go up, you go into fight or flight.
Yeah.
And again, you're going to have anxiousness as well, and sleep difficulties. He had many neurotransmitters here all contributing. They were all like piling up on each other, just contributing to the way that he was feeling.
Got it. No, thank you. And so it's like, I think Goldilocks, right? It was just the right amount. It was too hot, too cold.
Yeah.
Share was too big or too small, whatever it was, but like it needed to be just right. And there's that number. And our bodies are designed, so thankfully you don't need to be a rocket scientist to understand all of this. Your body will naturally put everything in its right category, correct?
Everything.
If it doesn't have things that are impeding that or deficiencies.
No, exactly. Everything in the body needs to be in balance, whether it's your blood pressure or your blood sugar or the levels of oxygen in your body or your brain chemistry. Everything needs to be inside of a certain balance. Even hormones, right? You don't want them too high and you don't want them too low. And brain chemistry is no exception. You don't want them too high, but you don't want them too low either.
Dr. Elena, now I'm going to come over here and look at his numbers here. This is Jeff. This was how long after? I mean, this was his first test here.
Yeah, so the first test was done in October, beginning of October, and this was done in May. And we typically don't go this long without retesting.
Yeah.
I like to retest after 3 to 4 months because we make very significant changes within 3 to 4 months. However, he took such a long time to get up and running on his protocols that we just extended the length of time.
Was that to do with his career? Is that to do with his career or just personal interest?
No,
no, I remember now.
He was having he was having so many sensitivities that we couldn't just put him on a full protocol right away. We had to do it very, very slowly.
Too long. So now this is done by a different lab. These are two different labs?
Well, actually, let me tell you, it's the same
company.
It's neuroscience no longer does it, so they turned over the technology to this one. So what I just tell
these
people,
are the new diagrams
what
now.
I just tell people is that just the format changed instead of telling them that it's a different company.
Yeah, that's fine. No worries. So we see here that the format is different. Because it's just a new way of tabling things here. But what we have here is this range of normalization here in the green.
Exactly, and anything within the green technically is going to be within normal range. Optimally, we would like to stay somewhere.
Yeah, that's optimal.
Between
okay.
like here and here,
okay,
optimally, right? If we go too far to the left and we're in the blue, then we're low. If we go too far to the right, then there's too much of the neurotransmitter. So you can see that he went from almost everything being low, with 2 of them being too high, to everything is within normal range.
Okay, got it. Amazing. And so how would he describe his symptoms now? Like you briefly mentioned.
I was on the phone with him the other day, and he told me that he said, I haven't felt this good in a long, long time. And when I do have a little bit of anxiety, it's a fraction of what it was. Like I'm handling it like a normal person would handle it. He's feeling much, much, much better.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's feeling amazing. He really was very, very committed to the process, and he saw the end result with, again, removing the interferences and changing his lifestyle and his foods, and understanding how to use food as medicine, and what supplements to take, in what dose, for what, and for how long that we need to do it. And we were able to see huge changes.
Amazing. So it's great to hear that he's had such a significant symptom improvement now, and an improvement of the root cause of the problem. So he was someone that reported anxiety as well as depression. Is that correct or not?
Yes, he had severe anxiety, followed by depression and issues sleeping and brain fog and memory recall issues.
Got it. So and people, we're not going to like lump all these diagnoses on that, but I could imagine somebody like that, they go to different doctors and they can get a diagnosis of ADD, and they can get a diagnosis of bipolar. They can get so many different diagnoses, which I think is a real challenge, in at a whole, because you look at how many things, early onset dementia because of his memory loss. You could get diagnosed. I'm just saying there's so much hope for any of you that are watching right now. So many different diagnoses are happening based off symptoms. It's like, okay, you say these things, you can't remember basic things, you must have a real problem, you must have a neurodegenerative disease, but really, I mean, he's got a chemical imbalance that of the gut, or whatever was triggering this, and let's get into those details. I mean, what was it that was triggering these problems for him?
He had parasitic infections.
Yeah.
He had systemic inflammation. He had what we call leaky gut, or gut dysbiosis. So he was having a lot of gut issues, and the gut issues were a huge cause of his brain chemistry imbalances. The foods that he was eating were also altering his brain chemistry. And that was a huge suspect for us, as well as the parasitic pattern that he was showing.
Got it.
And as we addressed all of these issues, the brain fog started to lift, and the memory issues started to go away, and the anxiety started to go away, and the depression started to go away.
Amazing. And okay, so you mentioned the parasite issue a couple of times now. Is it possible that the parasitic issue would actually be throwing off these numbers?
Absolutely.
And how?
Absolutely, it does. Well, parasites, or any type of pathogen or bug that's living in the body, they throw off endotoxins. So when you have pathogens that are in your body, which are basically bugs that don't belong, and that can be in a category of parasites, bacteria, virus, protozoa, fungus, whatever it is, they throw off toxins in the body, and those toxins can in turn cause huge neurotransmitter imbalances. For example, Toxoplasma is a well-known toxin in the body that has actually caused people to commit suicide. And there are studies on that. So you can look up Toxoplasma and suicide, and you can see that. But what's unfortunate is that many people who have struggled with depression for many years were never tested for underlying infections to see if the infections could be the underlying cause of the neurotransmitter imbalances.
Got it.
Toxoplasma is a wonderful example, because there are numerous studies showing the correlation between Toxoplasma and the changes to the brain chemistry that lead to suicide.
Okay, wow. And Toxoplasma, where does it come from?
Toxoplasma can come from various sources, but it's common amongst cats, I believe, as well.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And so this is one example of something that could be in the tens or hundreds of triggers, whether it's mercury, right?
Definitely.
Aluminum.
Definitely.
These are things that we know affect the brain. It's common knowledge. Thankfully, that's something that you're not unfamiliar with, the fact that mercury and aluminum and lead are toxins to the brain. And even aspartame and other artificial sweeteners have now been proven to be neurotoxins, right? And so artificial sweeteners, so we know these things, and so they're certainly going to interfere, and they're going to make someone think in ways that they normally wouldn't think, and that's an important point to make here. Okay, so we're getting somewhere here. This is awesome. So let's get you to help me back through this protocol. So where do we go from here? So we've got a good understanding from like Jeff's case here, but keep taking me through. So like we got this test. Oh yeah, one thing I want to ask is the cost of this test.
This test runs around $211 to $220. It probably depends on the company that you're doing it through.
Well, then people know what to expect, and this is called a neurotransmitter.
A neurotransmitter test.
Okay, great. Mm-hmm. And it's done from urine.
Yes, it's a urinary test.
Great. And that is, and they're testing for serotonin, gamma or GABA, dopamine.
Norepinephrine, epinephrine, glutamate, glycine, histamine, PEA, and then a couple of others in ratio form.
Yeah. And creatinine.
Yes, the creatinine.
That's off the I don't know.
And there are other tests. Some that may test fewer neurotransmitters, some that may test more neurotransmitters. But this is the one that I've been doing. Great. And seeing really great results.
Great.
This is a really interesting case here. So this patient, he is a war veteran. He is 55 years old. And when he came to see me, he was on a handful of medications. He was on Prozac, lithium, Xanax, and Ambien. And I think he might have been on one other, but I don't remember.
And that's not lithium orotate, that was something else?
No, he was on the prescription.
The drug-based.
The drug-based lithium.
Because you can have a natural lithium orotate, which is not bad.
Right. Yeah. No, that's actually, it's really amazing stuff.
Yeah, cool, I'm glad to hear you say that. It's really amazing stuff. I think it's fascinating.
It really is, but he was on really, really high doses. And his doctor had diagnosed him with bipolar, severe bipolar, and he came in to see me, and we started working with him, and we did his neurotransmitter testing, and even with all of the medications that he was on, when he came in to see us, you can take a look here, when he came in to see us in November of last year, his serotonin was super, super low. And you can see that some of his neurotransmitters, some of the other ones that were also contributing to his symptoms were very, very low as well. We also took a look at his genetics, and we were able to see how the environment is influencing some of his genetic expression with the genes that are helping to drive the production and the breakdown of his neurotransmitters. We also were able to see that he also needed some gut work. Yeah. So there were again numerous causes. It's never one thing. There's usually multiple things that are going on in the body that are interfering with the body's ability to work properly, in his case to make his neurotransmitters. And with all the medications that he was on, he was still in really, really bad shape. So we started him on a protocol, and we had to do a lot of work with him. It wasn't as easy as with the other case that we were talking about a minute ago. This guy had some pretty bad eating habits. So I really, really had to work with him on that. That was the biggest thing for me.
Lots of gluten?
He ate a lot of processed foods. He ate a lot of processed foods. As we started getting him eating cleaner, more whole, fresh foods, vegan, anti-inflammatory type foods, he started coming out of the brain fog very, very quickly. And so I sent him back to his practitioner, and he was able to start coming down on his medications. This was an incredible case because of the mega high doses that he was taking of so many different psychotropic drugs, that he was able to come down and come down and come down. And by the time that we tested him in January, this was actually like a 3-month. From November to January, we saw a huge change. Let me just flip this around so you can see. On the left is before, and on the right is after. And we actually got his serotonin up pretty high. You can see everything else is within range. So everything here was either too low or too high. Here, everything is within range. His serotonin, he had a great response with his foods. We actually used a very low protein diet to help raise his serotonin levels, and we also worked on balancing out his carbohydrate and sugar metabolism, so getting his insulin more balanced. And he had a huge response, but also remember, he was still taking some medications while we were doing this.
Yeah.
And that probably is what contributed to such a rapid rise in his serotonin. Right? And this is a process. This takes work.
Yeah.
You can't fix it in one shot.
Yeah.
This is a process.
Yeah,
and
I
so
like that.
that's why we do follow-up testing, so that we can see what's going on and what is going to be the next step after that.
That's awesome. And you think about the fact that you look at his previous one. What name are we giving this guy?
Jack?
Jack. All right, so Jack over here.
Call him Jack.
All right, so Jack actually, he has only 3 things that are in the right range, and they're all kind of slightly on the lower end.
They're on the low end of normal.
Yeah.
So like this might as well be low on him,
Yeah.
because these are so out of balance. If
Yeah.
his GABA was a little higher, that would actually probably have helped him feel a little bit better, because it could have
it's helping to
compensated.
pull him up a little.
Yeah.
And so, but then you have a look here at his other one, and everything is within the normal range, and then one is too high. So it's a huge contrast when you think about only 3 things being in range, and then one thing being now over the range, which is, I think, arguably better than someone being lower, because it's kind of easier to pull things back than it is to prop things up.
Exactly. It just takes, like I said, it's a process. You can't necessarily get it in one shot, and that's why it's so important to do follow-up testing. And you can modify the diet and you can modify the supplements as you go along.
Great.
By the time that we did this,
Because his serotonin was low, you probably hit him with some serotonin supplements or something.
yeah. Well,
He went too high.
Yeah. Well, see, we can actually make big changes to serotonin levels by putting the person on a low protein diet.
Yeah.
And balancing out their insulin. And then yes, we can give supplements to help the body. So if the body has the ingredients that it needs, if the body has the ingredients that it needs, and there's no interference for the body's systemic engines to work properly, the body will make exactly what it needs, right? So it just needed a little bit of fine tuning. But by the time that we did this test to follow up and see his progress, he was feeling great. He was down to only 1 medication, which was, I believe, is lithium, and he was down to half the dose, or a third of the dose, and he was off of everything else that he had been on for probably over 20 years.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
In what time period?
This was from around Thanksgiving time to January, to the end of January.
Wow, so that's only 3 months.
This happened fast. Yeah.
Amazing. That's the 90 days you're talking about.
It's the 90 days that I'm talking about.
But you're talking about that was someone with 2 decades worth of damage.
And a lot of medications. A lot of scary medications.
Unfortunately, like we've got to tell the truth about that. There's systemic effects of the medications, and thankfully, that's one thing that they are honest about. And that's why the commercials have to go for double the time, because of the list of side effects. So they're significant, and so we're looking at one area of depression, anxiety for this gentleman, Jack, that we're calling, but he's now put off a lot of other conditions that he would have been facing. And I say that unequivocally, because you can't do that amount of medication to the system without having side effects, and that's
some sort of side effect.
That's why the list is so long. You can get side effects after a single day's use, let alone 20 years. So
I think that's why he was on so many medications.
To balance the side effects.
To balance the side effect of another. He also had really bad IBS symptoms, and by January he had no IBS symptoms.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. And irritable bowel syndrome can quickly turn into irritable bowel disorder, which is an autoimmune condition at that point. But but it's arguably an autoimmune condition in nature at its stage at irritable bowel syndrome. So there's the distinction. But if one waits for a classification, then you're just letting the problem compound. Really, a lot of these aspects have autoimmune elements, which is why you're getting at foods that are causing the body to attack, because the body's attacking things that are entering into the bloodstream.
That don't belong there. And it just starts causing a cascade of reactions in the body that really get the person very, very sick. I wanted to add here too that in his case, it was so important for him to have follow-up with his practitioner who had put him on all of these medications, because he was on so many very, very powerful psychotropic drugs, and we were very, very fortunate in that the doctor was supportive, and we were able to do this as a team. Sometimes the doctors are not supportive. And that's where the person will, maybe need to have a talk with their doctor, or maybe find another doctor who will be supportive of them making healthy lifestyle changes, so that we can see if their body will normalize, because that should be the first option. Drugs should be the last option. And if drugs are a first option, then it should only be temporary. Drugs are not designed for long-term use. And so a good doctor, like this doctor who is taking care of this patient, will be supportive if the person is wanting to make healthy lifestyle choices to see if their own body will be able to heal itself. And this was a perfect example of that.
Perfect. Okay, so Dr. Elena Villanueva is going to help us understand now the protocol that someone's to go through outside of this specific neurotransmitter test that we were just going through. She's also going to help us just go through the general kind of approach and protocol that you can implement from home, wherever you are in the world, or you get another practitioner to help guide you through, but say, hey, look, this is what I want to do, or even a health coach, and say, this is my plan, or here, watch the watch the anxiety and depression documentary series that Jonathon's put out, like just watch this, and then I want you to help guide me through the process. Or of course you can see a practitioner in the series, but the whole point of the series is to teach you to do this from home and give you an edge over other practitioners that are out there, because we're really putting together the best of the best here, which is really cool. So Dr. Elena, can you take us through the steps? What does somebody do? Where do they start? So we need to look at every aspect and take us in the order that you believe we should go in, but we clearly need to cover diet. I know that you're not necessarily vegan, or your husband, so it's not like some kind of thing that you're just doing because you think that veganism is the best. It's certainly it's something that's based on the science of it, and I'm probably more on the plant-based side, and you're not so much, but I think that's even more of an argument in my case, that you might be more on the omni side of things for your own diet, but for somebody that's trying to recover, you're really seeing it from the plant-based side of things.
Oh,
and I think
absolutely.
it's fascinating. So take me through it, every point that you'd like to start where you should start, and then take me through specific supplements and ways to get those supplements to make sure they're effective, because there's a lot of junk supplements out there as well. So let's look at what are the things that people are generally deficient in. Let's have a look at your core elements of restoring gut health, and just take me from square one. I'll let you take over here.
So optimally, you want to get testing done so that you can find what the root causes are. Optimally, we don't want to guess about what's going on with you, or what are the multiple different engines that may not be working properly. So if you can find a practitioner who can do variable tests, such as the functional blood chemistry panel, the neurotransmitter testing, if we can look at the genetics that are affecting the production and breakdown of your neurotransmitters and that are also affecting your gut health, that would be great too. Sometimes we also want to look at hormones. So if we can afford to do the testing, that's the optimal route that we want to go.
Sure.
Once we get the test, then we can verify what imbalances that we have, what nutritional deficiencies we have, what support that we need to give, as far as food changes, lifestyle changes, what supplements that we need to take so that we can address things in a particular order, so that we can address the issues in a particular order, so that we can get the end result.
Great, perfect.
And if we can't do the testing,
yep.
all right, which There are many of us out there that, that can't get that done, or maybe they're in another country and those tests are not available.
Yep.
And so I'm going to give you a protocol that's going to cover the basis.
That's so awesome.
Okay.
Whoever you are, whatever you're struggling with, you can get better, and whatever tools you have available to you, you can use them to get better, and that's awesome. So, yeah.
So what we want to do is, first and foremost, we need to change our foods. We can use food to heal us, and we can also eat foods that will literally kill us and make us sick. And then I like to have a third category of foods that I call neutral. And so whenever we're sick, we need to eat the healing foods. So if we're going to talk about healing foods, that's where we go into plant-based diets. So we eliminate gluten, dairy, sugars, meats, and we stick to organic, or the best that we can do with our vegetables, our fruits, and doing healthy non-glutinous grains that we can add in there as well. And a lot of people will say, I don't know, then what am I supposed to eat? If I can't eat those things, then there's nothing left for me to eat. That's absolutely not true. There are amazing cookbooks out there. You can go even to YouTube and you can find amazing recipes. I always will tell clients here in Austin, we're very, very lucky. We have a lot of farm-to-table, vegan-type restaurants. We have Flower Child. We have True Food Kitchen. So we have a lot of places where the clients can go to try vegan dishes and then get inspired from there and go home and try to make those dishes themselves. So
Awesome.
the first thing is to get rid of everything that you have in your house, throw away all the junk, don't finish it, because you feel like you got to finish your food. It's probably killing you. It's making you sick. So throw it away and go to the store and buy all vegetables, fruits, everything from the outside of the grocery store minus meats and dairies.
Perfect. If you eat that food, it'll make you more sick, which will then cost you more money, which is a bigger waste.
Yeah.
If you want to determine that based off waste, that's the biggest waste you can do, is consume unhealthy food, because it puts your medical bills through the roof, which is not good for the economy.
Exactly. And remember, this doesn't have to be forever, but you should do it at least 90 days. At least 90 days going vegan, and you're going to see the health benefits from that, because those are very, very healing foods. They provide you the nutrients that your body's engines need in order to heal and restore themselves back to optimal health. The next thing that I would do is work on gut. We need to address gut health. We can make the assumption that over 90% of the population has what we call leaky gut or gut dysbiosis. So while you are going to the vegan plant-based diet, we need to take advantage of that, and we need to add a couple of things in that can help heal the gut. Now, bone broth, even though if we're going to go vegan, we can use bone broth medicinally.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can use bone broth to help heal the gut. We can use things like celery juice to help heal the gut. You could do a bone broth with celery to help heal the gut. This is actually just food-based.
Yeah.
This is not any supplements at all. If we were to add supplements, we can do L-glutamine-based products. In some cases, with certain genetic mutations, if you try an L-glutamine-based product to help heal the gut, and you start noticing a big increase in anxiety, typically 2 to 3 days you'll notice it, then it's probably a mutation in one of your genes, and so you don't want to take that. And that's where the lab testing helps us, because we can look at that and I'll know exactly what supplement. Do we want to put you on an L-glutamine based supplement to help heal your gut, or do we want to go with an alternative? But if you're doing this on your own, bone broth, celery juice are amazing to help heal the gut. You want to add a probiotic in there too. Taking a probiotic by itself without addressing the ecosystem of the gut isn't going to help heal your gut. That would be like trying to put tropical fish in a dead coral reef. They don't have an ecosystem in which to live. Okay. So you've got to rebuild the coral reef so that then so that the tropical fish and all of the life that belongs in the coral reef will have a place to live. And it's much the same with the gut. So when you're doing the bone broth and the celery juices or the L-glutamine products, that is going to help heal the gut. And then when you re-inoculate with the healthy bacteria, they actually have a place to live, and you'll actually start to feel the benefits. So if you have tried in the past to just take a probiotic and you weren't addressing the house in which the probiotic needs to live, and you weren't noticing results, this is why.
Perfect. Thank you. No, I love that. And I was just thinking as well, from some of the things that we've been looking at, bone broth can be helpful, and we looked at even people doing potato and carrot broth, which seem to have some impact. So that was very interesting to me. I'm yet to see some people test it and tell me what kind of results they can get with it. But for the vegans,
yeah, and there are other combinations of supplements and herbs that you can use. So I'm just keeping it super simple.
Awesome.
The other thing that we would do, so number one, you change your foods and we go plant-based. Number two, we address a couple of components to help heal the ecosystem of the gut and to re-inoculate with the healthy bacteria. Those healthy bacteria help make your brain chemistry. So that's one more component. So it's so important to have a healthy gut system. Then I would recommend that you do an antiparasitic. So you want to do some sort of a cleanse that will incorporate an antiparasitic. Most people are going to have some sort of parasite in their body. I mean, that's just, you can get them from eating in a salad bar. You don't have to travel to India or some foreign country to pick up a parasite. You don't have to go to a tropical place to get a parasite. Like, you can catch them. You can actually, acquire a parasitic pattern from the salad bar, or from eating sushi, or from your pets. And so I would just recommend that you go out and you find a good anti-parasitic protocol, and you do that for a minimum of 90 days.
Perfect. I love that. Thank you.
And then also I would recommend that you go to a filtered, purified water. Our water system is fortified with fluoride, and there are a lot of other chemicals in our water. So I have a client, and I don't remember the title of his job, but his job is to test the water and see what's in it. And he told me he will not touch tap water because he knows what's in it. There are remnants of medications in there, all kinds of toxins in there. And this guy knows, like, that would be really amazing if we could have had him here to actually talk about that. Of course, that could compromise his job. So
we have to black his image out, distort his voice.
We would have to black his image out. But I thought that was amazing to actually hear that firsthand from him, how toxic our drinking water is. So you want to get a purified water that is eliminating all of the toxins out, including fluoride. And we want to make sure that you're using some sort of like a reverse osmosis system, or that you're buying your water from a purified source and not in plastic bottles. And I also recommend that you change out your fluoride-based toothpaste and you go with a non-fluoride-based toothpaste. So this is my opinion, and the opinions of a lot of holistic health coaches around the world, that fluoride is a neurotoxin. And we do know that fluoride blocks selenium receptor sites. So I know that sounds fancy or complicated, but fluoride actually interrupts some of the chemical reactions that happen in our body that are necessary for thyroid hormone conversion, that are necessary for brain hormone conversion. And so we want to eliminate environmental toxins. And that's why I recommend that we go to a purified water.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. And the issues there with fluoride influencing thyroid health, which is arguably the number one autoimmune condition in America, of which there's arguably 1 in 4 people, like over 80 million people suffering with autoimmune conditions, and thyroid conditions being such a prevalent disease among that group. And speaking about women's health, thyroid condition is something that affects women 10 to 1, men to women. Right, so it's a really big issue. Fluoride sensitivity certainly does affect the thyroid, as does gluten sensitivity, and so removing those triggers is key. You can't that's something that you can't take a supplement to get rid of the compounded damage and just expect that it's going to help if you keep putting fuel on the fire. You try to put it out, put fuel on the fire, put some water on the fire. That's not a way to win at the game of life. Do not do it. Be smart, be wise, be vigilant.
Yeah, just make the commitment to make all of those changes. If you can make the changes that I just discussed with you, and you can be consistent with it and give yourself 1,000% commitment to it, you should see some changes.
Great.
And that's even without doing labs and without being able to get super, super specific and detailed and using my data-driven approach. If you can do the things that we just outlined, you should be able to see some really big changes.
Those people always win. They just always win. People that are willing to go and remove the triggers and just add in a couple of things that are powerful and helpful. And they're willing to look at the root cause, for example, to take that anti-parasitic, natural herbal supplement. And you might not have all the money to get all the tests, but you will win because you're somebody that's committed to your success, and you're willing to remove things that are hurting you, and you're willing to put in a couple of things that your body's needing at that point in time.
Yeah, thank you so much. It is a process, and it takes work. But again, if you stick to it, the process works. And the last thing I wanted to say is that...
Yeah, anything else that you've got here?
The last thing I wanted to say is that we have to take the mind, body, spirit approach, okay? So in the holistic realm of what we do, we really understand that you can have spiritual components that can really, really affect your genetic expression. We know this scientifically, that traumas can affect your genetic expression, which is then going to change your biochemistry. So it's going to change your body's ability for its engines to actually work properly. And so if you've had, and most of us have, who hasn't? It's hard to escape, this life without having some sort of traumatic events that have happened in your life. But you want to address those, and there are practitioners out there who focus on that.
Yeah.
But you have to address it from a whole mind, body, spirit perspective. And then the last thing too is, get yourself out there and try to get a little bit of physical activity in. Maybe in the beginning it's almost impossible because you feel severe fatigue, chronic fatigue, and you're just feeling really, really bad. But as you start changing your diet, what you're putting into your body, what you're drinking, like with the purified water, and you make these changes that start to affect your body chemistry, you'll have a little bit more energy so that you can then start focusing on taking a yoga class, going out for a walk. We're very, very sedentary, and that also affects our health in a really negative way.
Awesome, thank you so much. Now let's continue here, because I think there's a few things we can go in more detail. We talked about the blood work, the neurotransmitters. So I think that one of the big keys here that you could help us do here is to work out what this means. So I want, this is a really great takeaway. If you're watching this right now, this is going to be one of the most wonderful things you could learn. If you could help us to work out what this means. So let's say I get my lab work done, my urine, and mine come out where everything's low, or well, let's just throw in something. Let's say mine is identical to his. I've got two that are elevated, and everything else is almost just underneath the bar, right?
Okay.
So now, what does this mean in terms of what I need
Like,
to
what
do?
am I going to do with you now?
Yeah, and so and how does these numbers help you to determine a treatment
More
regime
specific.
that is different to what I would have done without this?
Right. Okay.
Good question, right?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. I'll actually go over that with you. So in addition to the recommendations that I made that were general, those would also apply to you.
Yeah.
Now, the difference is that I would also be able to be more specific with the supplementation that I would give you. So let's say that we also looked at your blood work, and maybe even your genetics as well. I would definitely put you on a methylation supplement so that we could give you a special form of B12 and a special form of folate, because taking into consideration that about 90% of Caucasians in the United States have particular gene mutations that are affecting their ability to uptake B12 and folate, that actually causes issues with serotonin and dopamine levels. So if this were you and you're showing me low serotonin levels and you're Caucasian, I'm definitely going to put you on the B supplements. Now, this is the thing. We all need B supplements anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
And most of us in the United States live pretty stressful, unbalanced lives. So we're going through our B vitamins and all of our other vitamins and minerals much faster than we normally would. Most of us are depleted in our B vitamins. So it's not going to hurt you to take one. The difference is that I'm going to give you a stronger dose, and I'm going to give it to you in a more broken down form to make sure that your cells can uptake it, and so that your body can make its brain chemistry and open the detox pathways and do the different things that your body needs to do. So the B vitamins are critical for like over 250 different engines in your body.
Yeah.
They actually require that. So we'll just make sure that we give it to you in a special form. So that's the first thing that I would do.
Perfect. And then just to bring up a study, the study that was done on spinach in the 1950s, one bowl compared to a bowl of spinach, within the last 5 or so years, 10 years, that the comparison was so stark that you had to eat 43 bowls of spinach to equal one from the 1950s. This study was done by the UCLA University. So it's a very serious contemplation when you're trying to work out, well, why don't I have enough? If you're the healthiest, quote unquote, person when it comes to diet, and you're plant-based or you're paleo and you believe that that's all within your food, then how do you get around that challenge of knowing that we have a reduction in the quality of our food, even with organic? So that's where you don't have to be a purist. Taking a B supplement doesn't mean you're not doing a good enough job through your diet. You're doing the best you can with all the things you have. Why not just get the best out of life and take B supplements aren't expensive. They're cheap supplements. And when I say cheap, I mean like they're affordable to everyone.
They're affordable, and that's absolutely a beautiful point that you made. Our food sources are depleted because our soils have been stripped of all of the nutrients.
Yeah.
And so that's very easy to find that in the research. You can find that. So even if you're eating as many vegetables as you can possibly get into your body every day, it's not going to be uncommon for you to be nutrient deficient.
Yeah.
But to go to the store and figure out what vitamin do I need, or think that, well, let me just cover all the bases and grab a multi. Oftentimes the doses, even in a multi, are not high enough to have a therapeutic effect on your body.
Yeah.
And so I would put you on a methylated B12 and folate, a special form of it.
Great. Which is?
I can't pronounce it. A methylated folate. So
Great.
I would put you on a methylated folate and a methylated B12.
Great, perfect. That's helpful.
The scientific name, I can't remember. But if you say methylated, like you can find them out there.
Easy, thank you.
And then the other thing that I would do, if we take a look here, your epinephrine levels look really, really high. So this is going to have you in fight or flight. This is just going to increase the anxiety that you have.
Yeah.
It's in turn going to affect your metabolism of your blood sugar, and it's going to throw your blood sugar off. Then,
is this common for people to have high epinephrine levels?
Yes.
Okay.
Then it's going to cause a tertiary cascade effect, and you're going to be waking up at 3 o'clock every morning.
Yeah.
So you're not going to have good sleep. So what we're going to do here is we're going to give some adrenal support.
Great.
And you can do that with ashwagandha, with licorice root. There are different things that you can use.
Adaptogenic herbs.
Adaptogenic herbs, exactly, to help support the adrenals and calm the cortisol response down, which will help bring epinephrine levels down.
Great. So the adrenals will help to balance the epinephrine levels. Okay, that's really helpful to know. And then adaptogenic herbs are really great for a lot of things with mental clarity, performance, sexual drive, so your ability to, be intimate with your spouse sometimes can be based on adrenal levels, and so you'll find that they're all, almost every adaptogenic herb is an aphrodisiac. So there's lots of side benefits to taking adaptogens.
Exactly. And then the other thing that I would do here to address the low dopamine and the low norepinephrine and the low PEA would be supplementation.
Which would be which supplements?
So right now I'm using a line by Neuroscience, and we're in the process of developing some of our own lines that we can be maybe more specific with some of the neurotransmitters.
Great.
But I'm sure there are a lot of good brands out there. The one that I'm familiar with, that I've been able to see results with, so I've been very consistent with using it, is the Neuroscience products.
Yeah, and so they've got a supplement that helps to counter the low dopamine effect or the low
So it's actually not countering it.
Yeah.
Or it's not treating the symptom of the low dopamine. What it's doing is it's giving the precursors, the different vitamins, minerals, supplements that are necessary for the body so that it can make its own.
Great.
So there's a nutrient deficiency there. There's a nutrient deficiency for whatever reason. Either you're not getting it in your foods, or you've been exposed to different toxins, environmental toxins like what we talked about, that are not allowing the different nutrients to do what they need to do. And so these supplements are giving the nutrients so that the body's engines can turn on and actually have gas to run.
Great. All right,
basically.
perfect. So then, but what would be the type of supplement you'd take to address, those?
Let me look.
Yeah.
Because like the breakdown of the different ingredients I don't necessarily remember what the ingredients are, but I could give the name of the supplement.
Oh yeah, so then the name of that supplement, and what does it have in it generally?
But to remember, see, that's the thing. I don't remember what's in it,
exactly,
so you can't
that's
ask
fine.
me
so
that.
we can rehash on that, and we can add that in another way. But
low range norepi. So precursors of low range norepi require vitamin C, copper, B3, L-tyrosine to help make them.
Great.
Right.
Great. So that's the answer. So copper, obviously not just drinking a little bit from the copper pipes here.
So I think it's really important to understand, we could look at the breakdown of the ingredients.
Yeah.
But how are you going to know what ratio?
Sure.
You don't want to tell.
Sure. So what's the answer?
Go with a supplement that's already been designed by a company who specializes in this type of work in the nutritional field. So neuroscience, they have it ratioed properly. There's a lot of science behind what they're doing.
Great.
And so for low dopamine levels, there's a supplement called Excita Plus for low dopamine levels that will also help with low norepinephrine levels.
Great.
You can do a Focus DL for the low PEA levels. You can do a Travacor for low serotonin and GABA levels.
Okay.
Right? And so there are different supplements that will specifically work on different categories. And they're not forcing a change. It's not a pharmaceutical. It's not forcing a change. It's just giving you the ingredients that you need so that your own body's engines will have what they need to make the neurochemistry on its own.
Great. Love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. And so then now we're on supplements. Like, let's just say somebody, doesn't do these tests and they want to know generally what vitamins and nutrients. Actually, before I go straight there, what I'm going to do is ask something I was wanting to ask before. Is it theoretically possible that this person here, that was role-playing as me right now, this is a real test, but is it possible that this person, let's say, because one of these guys, Jack, that we called Jack, he had a parasitic infection. Is it possible that all these numbers can normalize by getting rid of, let's say if you had a severe parasitic infection that was leaching all these minerals and from your body, is it possible that they could normalize theoretically?
Theoretically, if there were no nutritional deficiencies, then yes. If you remove the interference, then the body will be able to self-correct. The body can self-correct. Our bodies are incredibly designed, and they will self-correct if they're given, if the body has what it needs, it can self-correct.
Great.
So yeah, if you remove the interferences, if you remove the heavy metals and you remove the parasite infections, and you remove the environmental toxins, theoretically the body should come back into normal. But what we see is that most people are nutrient deficient.
Yeah.
So you really need to supplement with nutrients. And when you have specific issues going on in your body, we need to be specific with the type of nutrition that we recommend. Just going out and grabbing a multivitamin isn't necessarily going to be the answer.
Yeah, typically, I've almost never found that someone gets a result doing that. So I'd certainly recommend that you're specific and that you go with something that you trust, that makes a lot of sense from other people that you trust. Like, for example, if you trust what Dr. Elena is saying, that you go ahead and follow that information. Find something that resembles what you learned and it is in line with those values and the understanding and learning that you've done. But I like that. There's a balance. But see the information there. Like you're always going to be putting out the fire if you don't get rid of the core problems. And so don't think you can skip a parasitic cleanse and just go to do the supplements, because all you're going to be doing is like you're fighting a losing battle. And you will find symptom improvement, and you may find it quicker than if you so then that's the interesting thing. If you want a really quick fix, then take the drug, right? But if you want to solve the root of the problem, then go ahead and go after the root causes of those problems, like the parasitic infections. And then when you take the supplementation, then you'll be really actually, these things will be working. They're not going to be consumed by the parasites. They're not going to be stuck in the digestive system because of the toxins and the heavy metals and the destruction of the gut lining that's happened, right? So then we can actually expect better results, which is amazing. So now when it comes to supplements, which supplements should people generally look at if they have depression, anxiety, or another mental illness? What are the ones that are generally lacking, and ways that people can get these either cost effectively and the right types of supplements?
So there are several different brands out there of the methyl B vitamins. So the methylated B vitamins, that's going to be the number one supplement that I would say that you need to get.
Great.
You also want to get yourself on a vitamin D. 99% of us are deficient in our vitamin D in a huge way, and it's been severely underestimated, the secondary problems that happen in the body when you're deficient in vitamin D. So you want to make sure that you're taking a vitamin D also.
What does D stand for? Maybe it stands for deficient.
I know. I don't know.
So just remember that, deficient vitamin D. I'm probably deficient. I will get a test if you want, but if you're not going to get a test, then assume that you might be. Right?
Assume that you might be.
Or assume that you are, right?
I see probably 2% of the people that I see actually have healthy levels of vitamin D.
Yeah, there you
and
go.
Depending on what part of the country or what part of the world that you live in, if you're up in the Northwest or you're up in the Northeast or just even in the Midwest where you have winter for like 9 months out of the year and you're inside, you're going to be deficient in your vitamin D.
And to give an illustration, you really love this. In Mongolia, this was like 12 years ago, something like that. I was there and I was with children that had rickets, and for those that understand how rickets works, the bones are so deficient in vitamin D that they bow, and the children, they end up being like half the size of what they're supposed to be. They look half the age that they actually are. Like I was talking to 12-year-olds that literally looked like they were 5 years old, right? And it was all because of the vitamin D deficiency, and children in wheelchairs that no longer can walk because of the rickets. And it was actually in this particular case that I found amazing, a Canadian doctor that introduced sprinkles where he was getting them to sprinkle vitamin D on their food each day.
D or C?
D.
D?
This was D, yeah.
D.
So this was all to counter, this is Mongolia, sun, right? So they were always, clothed in the sun, head to toe, because it's still, anyway, and they only get summers for like a month out of the year, the rest is winter. It's just really odd, right? And so they suffer greatly because of the lack of vitamin D, but they supplement, and when they do that, they don't have the issue. And now this Canadian doctor was able to reverse it.
That's
It
incredible.
was touching and beautiful. So just know that, you see this visibly. Vitamin D deficiency is really severe, and it is a causative factor for depression, and especially.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Those would be two very, very basics.
Great.
And without seeing the results of the test, if you get into a supplement line like neuroscience, where you're specifically trying to address, neurotransmitters, where you're specifically trying to address dopamine or serotonin, that's where you really need the test. I mean, that's the safest way to go about it, because if you get a supplement that's going to help with serotonin levels and it's not a serotonin issue, maybe it's a dopamine issue, then you could potentially make the problem worse.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like
right?
that.
So I would say just those two basics. Believe it or not, it sounds too simple to be true, but those are two basics that run a lot of engines in your body that have to do with your brain chemistry and your overall health. Oh, and a probiotic.
Yeah, please.
Definitely the probiotic. So methyl vitamins, the methyl B vitamins, a probiotic, and the vitamin D.
Yeah.
And then the food, the dietary guidelines, eliminating the environmental toxins.
Yep.
Those things are going to be huge. I mean, if you break down what it is that I do, even when we're looking at a lot of detailed lab work, if you break down into a very simple form what I do, we've just shared that with you.
Yeah.
And we're seeing amazing, amazing results.
So true. And I've witnessed it myself. I've seen the results, and I've seen what's possible for you when you just uproot these simple things, and I like that you've helped to outline some of these major causative factors. And is it possible that eating gluten could throw these numbers off?
Gluten can definitely throw those numbers off. I have actually seen clients who have had manic depressive episodes after eating gluten. Clients that we have worked with that we took them through the whole process and their neurotransmitters balance themselves out. They heal themselves with their diet and their lifestyle and their supplement choices. And then they would decide to go and try a sandwich one day, even though it was organic bread, but they would put gluten into their bodies, and it completely derailed them emotionally for 3 or 4 days. I can't tell you how important it is to just give it up. There are so many other choices out there now.
Like what?
You can do almond flour for pancakes, for example. You can do almond flour to make your banana bread. There are gluten-free crackers. There's gluten-free bread out there. You can do anything that you want gluten-free. Just stay away from it. It causes such a huge inflammatory response in the body that it can literally derail you emotionally for days. And if you're eating it all the time, and you don't even realize that that's the trigger, imagine what a game changer that would be for you if you'll just pull yourself off of it.
Yeah, and that costs nothing. It costs you nothing. Costs nothing, and it's one of the most powerful things you can do, and it's certainly not, and it's not something you can pay for. You can't pay to have somebody remove the effects of gluten in your life. You can't pay for a supplement that's going to do it. It's just if that was true, then people would just take drugs and lifestyle-based drugs for fun, and they would take something to take rid of the effect of the drugs, but you can't do that. You have to live with the effects of the things you're putting in your body, so certainly that is very significant. So let's have a look. Overall, I think we've hit a lot of the key aspects here. We've looked at some of the key supplements that people could be taking and using. We've looked at the tests, these tests to do like the neurotransmitter tests is just around the $200 mark, and we looked at the blood tests. I think that we might not have gone through all the costs there. Let's help me outline those costs of the different tests that people should take.
I can speak for I don't know what the cost is going to be around the country using other labs necessarily, so everything varies a little bit. But in my office, the brain chemistry test runs around $211. The functional blood chemistry panel, which is a very very detailed amount of blood work that we look at, runs around $260.
Yeah.
The genetic test runs around $800.
What's the name of the genetic test?
It's the Aperon.
Okay.
Aperon Genetics.
Great.
And
so that's the most expensive one, $800 for the genetics test.
Yes, it's $800 for the genetics test, and it's a game changer.
Great.
If you can do it, if you can order the data, get the data. Great. Because it's invaluable. Great. To actually be able to do a diagnostic on your own body and see Great. What's going on. It's like doing the diagnostic on the car, and you can find exactly what's going on. If we get enough data, we can find exactly what issues are going on in the body. We can correct them, and then the body self-corrects.
Great.
So that's about $800 for that test. Love that test. It gives you an invaluable amount of information on how the environment is reacting with your body, so that you know what to eat, what not to eat, what chemicals that you may tolerate better than others, how to exercise, what genetic engines may not be allowing you to absorb your B12 and your folate. All right, so that tells us, it's the genetics that tells us if we need to take that special form or not. But for general purposes, I would just put everybody on that just to make sure that they can uptake their B12 and their folate.
Right.
Let's see, we did genetics, blood, neurotransmitter, and then in some cases ordering the hormone panel.
Great.
In some cases, looking at the hormone panel would be very important, because if your hormones are really, really off, that can just cause a cascading effect. It can add to the problem. So you could get everything else for the most part balanced out in your body, but if we don't address like the female hormones or the male hormones, that's going to not allow the body to fully heal, and you're going to keep going backwards. So you'll make some progress, then you'll keep going backwards. And then the last one is the GI stool map test. If we need to run a very specific test to look at gut function and to look for parasites and things like that, we can do that. So all in, you're looking at around $1,500 of testing.
Okay, yeah, and that's for everything. There's a hierarchy there. We've kind of listed out that hierarchy of things. The blood test first, the neurotransmitter test second. So if you've only got room for those two tests, then they would be the two. But you might be really fascinated by what we just showed you, because we were only showing you the neurotransmitter test here. So then that might be the one that you go and do, right? Just to kind of, you see that. So Joe, just coming over here, we just need to wrap up. What were the names of the hormone test and the GI test?
The GI test is called the GI stool map test, and the hormone test is by Diagnostics. That's one of the labs that we use for that. We have a couple of different ones, but if you talk with your holistic practitioner about it, or if you know, any holistic practitioner that you call will know what types of tests that we're talking about here, and they'll have access to those.
Great. And then finally, I mean, what do you think of what we're doing here, Elena? Like our mission here with this documentary, and what do you think of what I'm doing?
I love what you're doing. We are giving a voice to the people that have been struggling, who have been looking for answers, who are losing hope. And I can't tell you how excited I am to be here and to have a voice that I can hold the torch for other people, and show them that there are answers, and that just like I pulled myself out and put myself back together stronger than I ever was, that we can help other people do the exact same thing.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.